And now our co-founder, John Henry.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm John Henry, co-founder of Both Sides of Conversation. Welcome to our Sunday conversation as we kick off a week of honoring our Black and Brown military people. Veteran Day just passed on Wednesday, but today we are going to acknowledge our military people today. We're going to have a conversation with our veterans about what's going on in our veteran community, how we can support them, how we can help them, and learn more and educate our people a little bit more about our veterans and our community. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick off with our community standards. While we getting ready to do the community standards, please take time to share this live on your Facebook, start a watch party, and we'll be replaying this on our YouTube channel as well. A good way to continue to follow us with this information. Um, for our community standards, we have new members. Um, in our group this week we had to remove a few people. We have to remember we have to keep a community healthy standard in our group as well as our live webinars. We need to have respect people dialogues. Both sides of the conversation is about having healthy conversations, debates, whatever you want to call it, but we want to keep it respectful so that we can have great energy and dialogue in our community. So with that being said, I'm going to just go ahead and read our standards for our community. Here at Both Sides of the Conversation, we are providing a safe and honest space for conversation. Please be respectful of that. Be respectful of all our panelists, hosts, and participants. Please do not personalize anything with anyone. No name calling, no bullying, no trolling, no shaming will not be allowed here at Both Sides of the Conversation, not only in our live webinars, but also in our group. Your perspective is yours. It is not a prescription. Please show respect, even if people don't agree. We are trying to create an open forum of dialogue for healing and education. That's the purpose of this platform. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open up the conversation. I'm excited. We have some amazing guests here today. Some people who've been in the military, have some experience with some of the services that our military people are involved with. We have some people doing some business things, doing some things for office, some great stuff going on for our veterans. So before we start, just want to thank you guys for your service, your family, for doing the courageous things that you guys have done for not only the country, but for your family and for the people in the Black and Brown community. It's always an honor. And we just want to salute our veterans and let them know that we love you guys. We appreciate you. And we hold you guys to the highest standard in our communities, especially here at Both Sides of the Conversation. Definitely support and salute you guys. So, with that being said, I'm going to open up. We have Eric Compton here. We have Gloria Berry and a great friend with her. We have Margo, and we have our Executive Director of Administration, Asia Pullen, here today for the conversation. Our co-founder, Rico, please keep him in your prayers. He might be joining shortly, but definitely dealing with some family stuff. But we always want to keep our prayers out there for Rico, as we know the struggles he's been dealing with in his family. So, with that being said, we're just going to open it up and jump right into it and let you guys introduce yourself to the people, who you are, what part of the branch of the military you served in, and let some of the people know some of the things you guys have going on. And then we'll jump into a conversation. Eric, you want to start us off?
Hey, thanks again for having me, John, and shout out to Rico. Hope all is well with him. Definitely keeping in our prayers. My name is Eric Compton. I'm originally from the city of San Francisco, so I'm from the Philmo. Uh, Went to Galileo Academy of Science Technology. So I'm definitely born and raised in the city. I also served in the military, the Army, United States Army, for 10 years. Actually got out on a medical retirement right around 2016. After that, been working at UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, as a business analyst. And I also have my own sports podcast called Sports Business. So, we do things a little different. So it's called SPORTZ. BIZNESS. So it's available on all platforms, and been doing a little bit of military outreach and talking to fellow veterans and things like that here in the Las Vegas area. So again, everyone knows that, or people that do know me know that I'm from the city, but I do live in Vegas. But as you all know here on both sides of this conversation, my heart and my soul is always going to be tied to the city and the Bay. So again, thank you for having me.
All right, Gloria.
Thank you for having me. I'm also born and raised in Fillmore. I joined the military right out of high school. In '87, I went to the Navy where I did active duty for 10 years. Then I did 2 years Navy Reserves. And then in 2007, I did a year as a recruiter, as a civilian for the Army. And then I went into Army Guard for 1 year. After that, well, after my first 10 years of active duty, I came back to San Francisco. I had 10 years tech experience in the Navy, and I tried to get a job at IBM on Market Street at the time, where no one who looked like me worked there. And of course, they did not hire me. So I did the next thing that was easy for a veteran. I went into law enforcement. So I worked at San Quentin for 8 years after that. And then since then, I ran for office here in San Francisco 3 times. I won 2 out of 3 of my elections. And my friend Allison King is here, who I like to say we're unicorns. There's not a whole lot of Black women from San Francisco that went into the service. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Allison King.
Well, hey, my name is Allison. I'm also from the Bay. Lived here for a long time. Also went into the military, Air Force, retired in 2014. Now live in Miami. I also work for the government, retired there also. Right now, I just travel with my kids. Well, I used to travel with my kids before COVID. You know, my kids do sports. So that's what I do right now, full time with them. And that's it.
All right. And then we have Margo coming in from the East.
Hi, my name is Margo Ellis. I'm originally from San Francisco as well. I was active duty Marine. I got out as a staff sergeant. I currently live in Beaufort, South Carolina, where I'm planning to run for Congress in 2022. So Gloria, I'd love to hear your lessons learned. When I came back to South Carolina, I was really surprised because researching my ballot to vote all the way down the ballot, we had a Democratic congressional representative, but it was like he was asleep at the wheel when it came to stuff back home. We've had the same family of DAs for 3 generations, right? So great granddad, dad. And now the presumptive son is probably only not the DA because he's still in college, right? And so it's like a good friend of the family who's kind of like holding the place, if you will. And it's almost as though they're in a competition to see who can send more people to death row, right? And so here in South Carolina, the death penalty is still legal. Just last year, our DA sent a 15-year-old boy to 30 years in adult prison for a marijuana deal gone wrong, right? Like, why is marijuana not legal to begin with? And so there's a whole lot of conversations to be had here. We recently, just last week, had a player from the San Diego Padres who was visiting home in South Carolina with his probably California weed and got arrested and went to jail here in South Carolina. As a professional athlete, like, we just really want Black men in jail is what it feels like down here. And nobody seems to be doing anything to stop it. In fact, I think it's going from bad to worse because we at least had a Democratic representative before. And so it's disappointing that he wasn't doing anything back home because we didn't even have a Democratic challenger for DA. So when I talk about like how bad I thought things were when I got here, it was almost shocking because there wasn't even like a resistance to it. So my goal is to hopefully change the conversation. I don't know if they're going to let a carpetbagger who's just back from Oakland win out here in South Carolina, but I'm gonna at least cause some trouble, honey. I'm gonna cause some real good trouble, right? I mean, Mississippi passed cannabis in this past election. When Mississippi is more progressive than you are, it's a sign that maybe somebody needs to get in the election who may not win. I'm scared as hell because this is my first time running. So again, Gloria, I can't wait for all of your advice. But I just can't sit back and pretend like this is normal, right? Like, I need to at least run and progress the conversation and be like, why isn't weed legal? Because we got too many Black men who are going to jail for stupid stuff.
I'm glad you opened up with that conversation because that is definitely one of the conversations I wanted to talk about. Legal medication and illegal medication that's affecting our veterans, and how do you guys feel about that, and policies that need to be changed for those places that's not so progressive. We're here in California a little way too progressive, as some people say. They just had a big ballot in Oakland, or the state of California is decriminalizing some of the psychedelic drugs like mushrooms and things of that nature for those type of services of a PTSD and things that affects, people with those type of traumas. So it's pretty cool to see that. But again, yes, it is a challenge. We talked about that last week on our conversation about the voting, how we have black men and brown men in America locked up for 20, 30 years for these small amounts of, misdemeanor drugs. And how do we change that? And I know we have new leadership, approaching office, and there was times on the campaign trail that they really advocated on things that they were going to do to decriminalize or take off the Schedule 1 or some kind of way to legalize, to release some of these people who've been locked up. So definitely looking to see what that 100 days is going to look like. And, a lot of people had the issues with some of the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris politics, but I guess we'll see if they learn and they understand the effects and really go ahead and make change for these people in these communities. So looking forward to that. But we're going to open it up to the conversation. I think the first and most important conversation to start off with for you guys, since you all been in the military, and me and Eric was kind of talking about it before we came on, is how in the Black community do we break the stigma about military folks? How do we get engaged and support our military folks? So like me and Eric was saying, here in California, it's a little bit more distant than certain other parts of the country in the South. There's a lot more Black military people more involved. They take the military they really involved with it. Where here on the West Coast, it's not so much, even though we have a large military base in San Diego and different places across the California. It just seems that for whatever reason, the stigma or the perception that Black people, brown people have in the community going to war for the country, going to war for politics or whatever it is, they're just not engaged, right? And I'm also trying to build that unity within our military community to say, hey, it's not just Veterans Day. We need to salute, respect our military people every day. We need to support them. We see the struggles. I mean, we see a lot of our veterans out on the street, homeless, or going through mental care, or post-traumatic stress syndromes, or just different psychological and physical issues. How do we reunite them? I've talked to some of the veterans and they like, man, it's all BS. They really don't support us, blah, blah, blah. And then we have some people that just don't want to reach out for services or say that they don't know how to get connected with service, which I struggle with that when I hear that. But how do we unify that disconnect with our veterans and make sure that they get the services? And I know it's more than just the VA, but it seems like the VA is like the main hub for information and services for our veterans. I mean, I know there's a lot of local things going on, but how do we engage it? And then you guys experience, we have a lot of young people who may be considering going into the military. If you guys could share whatever you guys would like to share for your experiences, or just so people can have a better understanding in our community.
So let's start with, why did you each go into the military? Margo?
Sure. So I feel like that's always a complicated question. I had a commander once who said that joining the Marine Corps is like becoming a priest. It's a calling. It's not something that you do because you need scholarship money. So there was those layers where, there was certainly scholarship money was part of the conversation, but in the Marine Corps, the conversation is something like this. Hey, I heard you're giving out scholarships, and I came from the Air Force office and they're going to give me a $15,000 signing bonus because my ASVAB was good. And the Marine Corps is like, we'll give you the right to call yourself a Marine. Do you want to be here or not? And at that point in my life, I feel like I really needed discipline. And so for me, joining the Marine Corps had a lot to do with personal development and things that I didn't think I could get anywhere else. And what I can say of the Marine Corps is I think that there's two things I always tell young people now. Joining the Marine Corps was the best choice I ever made in my life, but I have a lot of friends who didn't come home, right? And so I always preface it to say that I was very lucky. I went to Fallujah, I brought all my Marines home, but that is the exception, not the rule. And so I always try to tell young people that there's a lot of risk that you're taking on when you choose to sign up for the military. But for me, it was a good risk, and it's not something that I've ever been sorry for.
So what about you, Gloria, Eric?
Yeah, I joined in 1987 as a senior in high school. Believe it or not, I was a police cadet in San Francisco. And we used to go to the Army base, which was the Presidio at the time, and practice on the range shooting. And I used to see the Army military police, and kind of like that was in my head, something that I might want to do. But then at the same time, I wanted to go to San Jose State. Anybody know about San Jose State in the 80s? It was cracking. So I wanted to go there so bad, but we could only afford tuition and not the dorms. And back then, I thought that was a long commute. You know, when you're young, you know, you think that's far away. So I was like Margo mentioned, the educational benefits that the military gives you, you can't beat that. And then at the time it was peacetime, you know, it was fun to go in the military back then, you know, and women didn't go to combat because I actually get people being against killing and going against other countries and stuff that look like us. I'm against all that myself, but I felt at the time, you know, I'm going into the tech field. I'm not going to be running around with a gun and all that. So I felt it was an okay decision. And I went down to recruiting office, used to be on Market Street. You know, we're military free zone city now. So recruiters aren't allowed in the city. But I went on down there by myself, and I went to, I think, the Army or the Air Force first. You got 2 years? I said, no. Air Force, you got 2 years? No. Navy, you got 2 years a program? They say yes. I'm like, okay, I want to sign up today.
Allison, come on, Miss King, tell us your story.
Well, my other friend, my other best friend Sabrina, and I went down to the MEP station. We wanted to join on a buddy program because they had a buddy program at the time for the Army. So when we went there, we ended up signing up for the California Army National Guard, and that's how we ended up going into the Army. But then for some reason, she went Army, and I went National Guard, and then that's kind of how I joined. But then I only was in there for like, I don't know, like 9 months, and then that's when I went out and went to the Air Force.
Okay, cool. What about you, E?
Yeah, so one thing that's kind of interesting is that usually there's not that many POC females that I'm actually on these type of panels with. So salute to all three of you lovely, young, amazing queens right here. So that's first and foremost, because I'm outnumbered. So this is definitely something that I'm not used to. So shout out to all y'all. Y'all joined like the Marines. Like, you know, I'm hearing Miss Margo and I'm like, the Marines, really? That's interesting. That's a different type of beast right there. So just that alone, she's a different type of animal right there, and that's something I would never touch. For me, it's a little different. I joined in 2008. My whole entire family was actually in the military. My grandfather did 20 some odd years in the Air Force. My father did a couple of years in the military. All of my uncles, aunts, pretty much all joined the military. They were married to a military spouse. So the military was actually kind of instilled in my whole family, which is kind of weird because we're from the Bay. So it's not really something that you kind of see all the time. So when I actually graduated high school in 05, I moved to Vegas to live with my grandparents for a few years because, I mean, it wasn't only but so much I could do in the city. You know, it was either go to city college or, you know, go on the block. So I kind of moved to Vegas to be with my grandparents. I went to school out there. I had a job, but even then, my granddad was like, the military ain't that much of a bad idea. And I was just like, bro, we in the middle of going to Iraq right now. Do you want to see me come home? And that's the stigma of being from the Bay. Like you always hear that, you're going to go out there and fight the white man's war or this and that. And, you joining or you selling out and, we got our own issues in our own community. Why would I want to go and face the big dogs issue? So, I heard all that, I heard all of the conversations, but one day I was just like, man, I'm not really, the job cool, school's cool, but I'm not really, I don't know what I really want to do in my life. So I spoke to my grandfather and I was like, hey, what you think? And even him, as he got older, he was kind of like, I don't know about it right now, dude. You may not come home, but I talked to him for a little while. And we ended up coming up with a game plan. So I was saying earlier, initially I wanted to follow in his footsteps and actually join the Air Force. The Air Force told me off rip before I could even go into the door. They was like, you got to lose 15 pounds before you even take the practice ASVAB. And I was just like, okay, well, I'll talk to y'all later. So I went next door to the Army. I was like, hey, this dude said I need to lose 15 pounds. Y'all gonna take me or no? And they was like, nah, we'll go ahead and work with you right now. So within about 2 weeks, I ended up joining the military base or United States Army. I went to Fort Jackson right over there where Miss Margo's at, over there in Beaufort. So that, I know all about what's going on down there with Senator Lindsey Graham and Jerome trying to run. So I know what's popping off over there. Went to Fort Jackson. Did 2 tours, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. So yeah, so that's kind of the main reason why I joined, was just to kind of carry on my, it wasn't about the nameplate on the right side, which is United States Army. It was about what was on the, or it was on the left side, I should say, the United States Army, but my right side that said Compton. And that, for me, that meant more than anything else, was just wearing that name of Compton and being, you know, a few select people that can say they're 3rd generation military folk.
Wow, powerful. And you're right. We are outnumbered by the ladies today. And I think that's a good thing because, you know, we are in a transition of a lot of trailblazing women, and that's doing amazing thing in America right now, from Kamala Harris to just some of our local officials. You know, we have the mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, doing an amazing job. We have the sister Keisha Abrams, Stacey Abrams, the mayor of Atlanta and DC and Chicago. So it's just amazing to see these powerful women doing such amazing things in our community, giving our young women that inspiration. You know, I understand that, and just having you guys on here is definitely powerful. But jumping into it for the ladies, for some of the young ladies out there that may be considering joining the military, you know, I would like to hear some of you guys' advice, and then some of the backlash that's I was talking to Eric earlier about the documentary about the young lady who the military said committed suicide, but the family kind of investigated and it said it was a murder, maybe possibly a murder, rape, or whatever. It's been like a couple of stories coming up about things that's been happening to women in the military. So just want to kind of get you guys' perspective on that, or try to kind of paint a picture of like you guys' experience for our people, young ladies out there that might be thinking about joining the military. How did you guys feel in your time of training, combat, or either?
I wanted to add, my first backlash was from my own father. He really, really did not want me to join because he was in the Air Force himself and in Korea, and the racism was so prevalent. He was really, really concerned. So that was my first backlash. But I wanted to add that another reason why I joined, and this is me being honest, I had a real deep fear of being a loser by not going straight to a 4-year college. Me and Allison went to an all-girls school here in San Francisco, mostly white. They were getting their acceptance letters to Stanford, to all these wonderful colleges and whatnot, and I knew I couldn't go. So I was so scared. And I also, my only vision of a woman's path in '87 was to be a secretary downtown San Francisco. And I knew I did not want to be typing and getting nobody coffee all day long. So that was my first, one of the big reasons why I joined. And then my first backlash was from my father.
What about you, Allison? Or should I say Miss King?
Well, you know, I didn't really have any backlash really while I was in there. I enjoyed my time in. I do encourage young teenagers to, you know, to join the military. You know, I give them advice as far as if they go into the military, you know, what they should do. You know, I to make sure that they join for their benefit, because, you know, the military is going to use them for their benefits, you know, especially in the long term or even in the short term, you know. So I give them the pros and the cons, you know, to joining, you know. So I let them know, you know, straight up, you know, being in there, you know, my husband's in there, was in there also, as far as, you know, from a female perspective and a male perspective, you know, the pros and cons of being in the military. And like I said, it's, you know, long term it is beneficial.
Cool, amazing. What about you, Margo?
It resonated with me earlier when you guys were talking about how to create more understanding and acceptance around the military experience. And I would say in my journey, I just entered, right? Like I was on some like, what am I doing this weekend? Leaving for the Marine Corps. You know what I mean? It was like a very like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do type of situation with my family. And so it wasn't a lot to it. Like I just went in. There wasn't really room for resistance. Like they tried to resist a little bit, but I was already in. What I found most surprising and really challenging to navigate was getting out and how people stigmatize veterans after you get out, especially if you're enlisted and not an officer. So for me, I feel like the first couple of years after I got out of the Marine Corps, it got to the point where I stopped telling people that I was a Marine and I started telling people I worked for DOD. Because I found when I said I worked for DOD, they would take me more seriously than if I said, well, in the Marine Corps, da 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 da, whatever, right? Like if I said in the Marine Corps, whatever, I feel like people tended to say that this isn't the Marine Corps, so that doesn't make sense, all this other kind of stuff. When in reality, there's a lot to the Marine Corps, right? So I feel like I'm at a point where I'm coming full circle. So I just started writing a book. And in the book, I'm talking about really taking Audre Lorde, who's one of my favorite authors, and I think every Black woman should read, and taking principles that she teaches us and kind of wrapping it in John McCain style Marine Corps language, right? So where like Desmond Tutu and Audre Lorde may talk about Ubuntu, right? Which is like this belief that like we are one, right? And your success is my success. And when you fail, I fail. That is something I believe is wrapped in esprit de corps. And I think if more of us thought about the world from the context of your winning is my winning and your losing is my losing, that it would position us much better to be a better society. So it's one of the things that, I started framing in my book was to talk about esprit de corps and how I think that kind of stuff is really important. And so I understand that it's not popular everywhere, but I think part of that is because of white supremacy and our need to resist it. But there's a way, I think, to take the best that the military does have to offer, and the whole notion of like looking out for each other and all that other kind of stuff, honor, courage, commitment, like that kind of stuff, it feels like our community needs. And so I think when I first got out, I went through this phase where I myself kind of like turned my back on the Marine Corps because I didn't think the Marine Corps was going to be helpful in the things that I wanted to do ahead. But now, heck, I'm 42. I joined in 99. And so all these years after being out, I've been out for 12 years now, I start to see things that I didn't see, right? And I wish that I would have had a different position through my 30s. I wish I would have stood up more for the honor, courage, and commitment type ideals and found a way to translate them to our community better before now. But I now is like an old lady vet. I'm kind of like coming full circle to think about like, how do I frame this conversation in such a way that it creates the space for us to continue to resist white supremacy while taking the best of what the military has to offer us.
Pretty dope stuff right there. And then jumping into getting into this, the struggles of military people coming home, dealing with PTSD, dealing with some of the physical and emotional issues, coming back into the community. What is that adjustment period looks like for our military service? And I know a lot of veterans out there are struggling with getting services and help. I know the VA has programs. I know there are things out there, and I know there's benefits for our military folks. But for some reason, especially here in the Bay Area, there seems to be a disconnect with our veterans for services and how they're being helped. And just wanted to get some feedback from you guys on you guys feeling of services or things that you need, the accessibility. We know some people just don't want to go to service because for whatever their own reason. But what does that look like from you guys, or what are your experiences or understanding of, the help from the VA or the help or the services that's there for people exiting or retiring or even still enlisted? I just want to kind of get that feeling because it seems to be a struggle in our community with our veterans.
Yeah, I guess I can start with that. That's a great question. It's interesting. I think Margo brought up some good facts, as well as Miss Gloria did as well. But one thing that I kind of picked away from what both of their takes were is that Uncle Sam is going to get everything out of you, whether that's you serving for 6 years, 20 years, 25 years, 3 years. He's going to get everything out of you. And I had an old first sergeant that told me he gonna get everything out of you, so you need to get everything out of him. And what the interesting part is, or the interesting aspect of that is that when you get out, it's kind of like a quick little ceremony to get you up out of here, and the army keeps moving. It's there's one organization where one person leaves, the show don't stop for nobody. And the problem is that when you're out, there really isn't like a follow-up protocol. There isn't really where they check up on you. And I know that the VA somewhat gets a bad name for not being able to reach out to all of those soldiers, but there has to be some sort of protocol where we can have, like you said, the city. I think right when COVID kicked off, I remember going by City Hall and it looked like a doggone tournament camp with just all the tents and stuff right there on the lawn, and all of the different sad stuff that I saw. And it's just like, I don't know even where to begin as far as coming up with a nonprofit organization that goes out there and checks on our veterans. Do they know what kind of, do they even have any type of identification? Just the VA, just the VA ID itself is an official government ID. You can travel with that photo ID. So just even getting those guys squared away of just having the right resources is just a huge tackle to even start off with. So I mean, just trying to make sure that we do some sort of follow up with our VAs, whether that we have a new department for our VAs that tackle more on homelessness, especially within the San Francisco division. I know the VA hospital is not too far off of, what is that, 101 South going towards San Jose. I don't know what they're doing out there. They're trying to go to City Hall and just see what's going on. But I think that there's definitely a huge problem within the city itself of San Francisco, trying to acknowledge and ask for that help. As far as myself goes, I'm medically retired. I do suffer from PTSD. All PTSD isn't the same, so I'm pretty sure Miss Margo, Miss Gloria, Miss Key, I believe I pronounced her name, Miss Keys, is they all sort of suffer from some sort of PTSD. Everyone thinks that PTSD is you out here running around the streets butt naked and just screaming out Bin Laden's name or something like that, but it can lead to depression. There can be other different forms of triggers. So I think, the stigma of PTSD has definitely been somewhat of a black eye. And it's just now within, 2020, that we're starting to kind of having that discussion even on the table for us to even talk about it. So having that empathy, and I think one thing that I've been very big on as far as here in the Las Vegas area is just showing empathy. Everyone's PTSD isn't the same, but just because someone's down at the VA, cutting up at the hospital, doesn't necessarily mean that here I am walking in the door, doesn't mean that I don't suffer the same thing that this dude is. So, all forms of PTSD is different, but we also have to show empathy to everyone that's served. Everyone has different experiences, whether you deployed for, 5 or 6 times, or someone who never even left the wire outside of their own contract. There's people who've done 20 years in the military that never deployed. So, they have some form of shell shock. So just having that empathy and just being able to get on that one-on-one level and just being more personable with all of our veterans is just step one, I think.
Yeah. What do you guys, Gloria, Margo?
I was going to say, I definitely want to encourage brothers and sisters who don't really see a lot of options in their life right now to join the service. But the key is, and I'll put myself out there, if anyone even thinking about it, I would love to help someone. I was a recruiter for a year. I was a recruiter of the month one time. And I know the games. I know how they can put you in a field that ends up nowhere. And I know how they can guarantee you training in a skill that will help you transition back into a civilian and be set for the rest of your life. So I really highly encourage someone who really seems like they don't have a lot of options. However, I do want to add that I actually received compensation for my PTSD. A lot of it had to do with men. And a lot of women in the military do face situations with the men that we serve with. I was actually stationed at a base one time where I was the only woman. I was on a ship one time where it was only 11 of us women. you know. So things are gonna happen, and I like to say those same things happen if you're not in the military. So it's really no different. But the benefits that I'm reaping to this day, from compensation to housing, I was homeless at one time. Because I'm a veteran, I was able to go through a fast track program. Not to say that I don't have to advocate for myself. They don't just call you all day to help you. You have to kind of go Vietnam on them a little bit to get your benefits. But I did, and I do get my benefits. And the education benefits, I've used those. It's priceless. My medical, a lot of people don't know I'm on chemotherapy. I get free medical treatment for the rest of my life. If I fall back down, there's a home somewhere up, I think Santa Barbara or whatever, that has if you're just disabled and just, you know, out there clucking, you can go to that home and have some roof over your head. So it's not easy to be in the service. When I joined and you have to swear in, I didn't raise my hand. I hid my hand behind my back because I was not 100% on board, but I knew that I was going to get something out of it. And after seeing 18 countries and being around people that you just would never be around, and seeing their culture is priceless.
And that's a very interesting perspective, and I'm glad you said that. Before we pass it over to your friend there, I'm glad you said that, because, you know, me and Rico, we do a lot of work in our community in the Bay Area. We deal with a lot of the violence. So it's great how you painted that picture, because the PTSD that we deal in the community sometimes is just on the same level as people that serve in the military, right? And again, you know, I think you guys presenting this information so clearly in a way that is inviting to our young people, because we do have a lot of young men in our community using militarized guns to commit violence. And maybe that's an outlet, right? There are just some people who are infatuated with guns and violence and explosions, and you know what I mean? So how do we encourage them? You know, and I think that's why this is a good conversation, because we have some people that in our community that maybe the military is an option for them to help stream some of the issues that we deal with. And how do we treat our community the same way that we treat our veterans who go through PSD, because there's a lot of trauma from violence and you know, gun violence in our community. So I think that was a very good point that you pointed out to the people. Go ahead, Ms. King.
Well, I think Gloria kind of like said it all. But the only thing I really wanted to chime in is that what I was telling her is that I think when the military members, when they process out the military or retire, I think one thing is important that the military probably really need to implement, which I don't think they will, but is they need to let the military members so that they need to reach out to the Veterans Affairs Administration, because they just, you know, let the military member just process and leave, and that's it. And you know, you don't know that you need to reach out to the Veterans Affairs Administration, and that the VA has all these opportunities, and you know, to the PTSD, to have someone to talk to regarding stuff like that, because you know, and have all these outlets for you, you know. And I think that if people knew about this stuff more, because you know, I talked to some military members and they don't even know about all these benefits that the VA has. So I think that's, you know, if the military actually did something like that, and don't assume that, you know, the military members will actually contact the VA, you know, I think the more people, you know, will take, you know, reach out to the VA and, you know, utilize those benefits and communicate to people to help them and do group meetings, stuff like this, and talk, and, you know, hopefully don't be in any violence or stuff like that won't be out there.
I think that's interesting you said that, because today one of the San Francisco Veteran Affairs people was supposed to join us.
You're muted, Mr. Henry.
Say that again.
Can y'all hear him?
Can y'all hear me?
Oh.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, John.
Oh, so what I was saying was one of our local veteran affairs leaders was supposed to be here today, and that was one of the questions we wanted to, ask him about, but he wasn't able to make it because of travel. But I think that's what we're trying to do here, also at both sides of the conversation is how do we be a part of that communication hub, right? And as a community, how do we help support that information to get it out so that we can educate our veterans who don't know about these services? And I think that's important. And I know Margo's no longer there, but definitely, you know, running for office, potentially, taking a Congress seat. Say it again.
I'm still
Oh, I
here.
think
Oh, no, I was
Oh,
saying,
yay.
I was no,
He's like, "Whoa, here."
I was saying that this was a good conversation. I know you're no longer at the VA, but definitely, you're running for office, a Congress seat or a Senate seat, whatever you're going to run for. It's good to hear this feedback. So we definitely have this on the agenda, right? Because I think that in our not only America wise, but in our Black and Brown communities, we have to definitely keep our veterans as a part of the agenda, right? Regardless of who we are electing, our local officials, we have to keep them on the playing field. And I was telling somebody earlier, I watched all the propositions here in California, and there was definitely nothing there for veterans. I mean, I didn't see any propositions or any bill, and I could be mistaken, but I looked, but I didn't really see anything that was really saying, hey, we need to support our veterans, medical services, our mental services. And it disturbs me because in San Francisco, me and Rico, we in a lot of these meetings. There's a lot of clinicians and sociologists and people in the nonprofit sector, and some of them working at the VA, advocating for funds for their nonprofits to do reach out and mental health services. And how do we get them to prioritize our veterans in those meetings when they're talking about advocating for funds and services to make sure that we have people boots on the ground getting this information, sending them to hubs to make sure they can get online and get involved. So I think that's a great segue into to Margo talking about a little bit of her experience in the VA and also about the previous question.
Can I ask a question? It from what I heard, it sounds like the VA, it's great if you want to go get like education. I know, in terms of the benefits that you normally hear when you talk about military services, you can get education, maybe a down on a home, and that's about it. But it sounds like what's happening afterward is they're not knowing what services are available afterward to help them either with the career placement or medical or, to help with PTSD or that kind of thing. Is that really where the VA or, when I go sign up, did I know, hey, I got all these services potentially when I get out? Because it sounds like these people aren't knowing for the most part, unless you really are, like Gloria said, advocating for yourself and going to these places. Does that sound about right? Or
Well, so here's what I would say. I would say that when I was sitting on the commission in San Francisco, my number one priority that I did hope that we would be able to pass a difference for veterans in the city and county of San Francisco is that there's not actually a seniors home in the city and county of San Francisco. So the nearest one is in Yountville. And so when you talk about homelessness, to me, it's so insane to have old people on the street. Like from my perspective, I've gone through, like I've had that transition in life where like you have to take care of your parents. My mom passed away of cancer. My grandmother's now passed away. Both of my grandmothers have passed away. And both of my grandmothers had severe dementia to the point that there's no way that we could leave them at home by themselves, right? And so it's like I have this reality that when you get older, there's a certain level of care that you're probably just going to need because this avatar of a body that we have, it starts to fall apart at some point, right? And so, I have an idealistic hope for a future where we have universal healthcare. Like, I don't think that healthcare should be a privilege. That feels like one of the things that really needs to be a right, especially in a place like San Francisco, right? In San Francisco, one of the number one challenges that we have with the homeless population is mental health care. And so I also have PTS, and my experience with VA has been phenomenal. And I wish that every American had the same access, right? Last year was incredibly hard for me. And that's when I got really serious about seeking mental health care. I kind of held it together for the first 10 years after I was out of the Marine Corps. But then the last 2 years, it just felt like it was snowballing. I was in a situation where I am very direct. And as a Black woman, there's already that stigma and those challenges when you're very direct, angry Black woman, not a good fit, all of the stuff, right? So, I kind of was like in another fit conversation. And for me, it was a breaking point, right? Like for me, it was a breaking point where I felt like I do all of this work. I have no support. Like I need help, right? And when I started going to VA and we started unpacking the bag of like, why am I so emotionally distressed? But that's when I discovered the PTSD underneath it all, right? So like sometimes people say stuff and I do get triggered, right? I get triggered. And when I'm triggered, your feedback, sir, ma'am, it may be on a level that may not be fair, right? And so that's something I have to work with. And it's something that I'm honest with people who I work with now. Like I just tell them, like, I have PTS and there will be moments where I will have like a hot moment. And I just want to plan ahead for it so that we can all be okay, right? Because it's one of those things that I hope will change in time. But at the same rate, I look around myself and I see people who aren't veterans who are in the room that kind of are given the space to say stuff however they want to say it, no matter how curt it is, right? And so I think as people of color, not just as veterans, I wish that we had more access to healthcare, because when I hit that really hard point where I felt like, gosh, I'm 40 and I've worked so hard and I feel like I'm always like in trouble for stuff that I shouldn't be in trouble for. And I started being able to have these conversations to unpack the fairness. I had a therapist. I had the choice if I wanted to use mental health drugs. I chose not to because I've heard so many horror stories about it, but I did use cannabis as part of my transition. And cannabis is a wonderful prescriptive medication, especially in a legal place where you're able to get exactly the amount of medication that you need, right? And so like, as I was going through my really hard therapy, when I was having anxiety attacks and that kind of stuff, I went through a period where I was microdosing almost every day on cannabis, but it's a microdose. So it's not like I'm walking around crazy high. It's like I'm taking a gummy, which then helps to elevate like my mood and just kind of even keel stuff. So I'm like less on edge. And so why isn't that legal and accessible for more people? So kind of closing it all up, I actually think that VA has excellent access to care. I think it's a challenge that we don't have more access. And so I think the biggest challenge are things like not having a veterans home in the city of county of San Francisco, where there's so many homeless people, especially homeless seniors that probably need 24-hour healthcare. So to me, it's really about fighting to expand access and to expand resources. And I don't think that's a ballot initiative. I think that's a congressional argument, right? Because it really comes down to, and for something like a seniors home in the city and county of San Francisco, that would be a local and a federal partnership. And so those are kind of things that like we should demand to ensure that we have a place for people to get old and get sick in our city. My grandmother, my family, third generation San Franciscan, when she had dementia, it's like you think about a lot of people in San Francisco don't have a car. And so if you put them out in Yountville, like you're not only like, yeah, you're giving them a roof over the head, but what kind of quality of life is that where their family can't go see them because nobody has a car to get all the way out to Yountville? So I don't know, that would be, if I was putting something, especially since there's a mostly Bay Area market here, if there was one thing I would put on your hearts and minds to advocate for the city and county of San Francisco, which I think is missing, is a seniors home. But I do think that we have excellent resources. It's just a matter of, do we have enough of them? And where do we need to put more of them?
Definitely. And yeah, we are a Bay Area hub, but we represent, the people across this great country. We have a great following all over the United States, in South Carolina, Atlanta, Texas. We have people all around. So, I mean, we want to get all of our people engaged. And I think community involvement, and it's about, how do we get there? And that's kind of like what we have to like talk about to figure that out as a community. Is it our local elected officials? Like you said, it's Congress, but how do we force them to make sure that they take up these issues so that it gets on the ballot or it gets into our local propositions so that we can make that change? And if it is just a matter of making a veteran's home, I mean, let's fight for it. We spend enough taxes and money on things that's not benefiting our communities. let's get that help for them. And then the stigma of the drugs, like, how do we make a safe haven for those veterans who might need marijuana or might need some of those drugs to be able to be in a safe place to do it, right? Because it's one thing if, hey, we build this place for them to come, but they go there and it's so restrictive to where, hey, you can't have your marijuana to keep you and your anxiety or your stress levels down. Like, how do we, I mean, what does that look like? How do we market that and advocate it for a way that's effective, right? Because one of the things in politics and locally, we deal with this all the time with our nonprofits. We come up with the programs, we design it, but in reality, it doesn't work for the people of service. You know, the people who actually need the service, some of the hangups that they have. And then we have a bunch of ineffective programs. So, I mean, thinking about it from a holistic point is definitely what we have to do. But we have to get all of our counties and states involved because it's a growing issue. And I definitely feel like, you know, the people that's putting their lives on the line and serving our country should definitely have all of the things that they need and access to that information, leaving and coming. And then how do we as a community for the people to support you veterans and the people who go through that to have that understanding, so when somebody's going through that PTSD or they hit this trigger point, that we're just not a community saying, oh, that person is crazy, this is what the military did to them, but how do we embrace them and support them, right? I mean, I heard a guy talking about, you know, his PTSD was so bad that at times he would, you know, come to a stop sign and stop and would just freak out and run through the red light because his experience of an IED bomb or something happened to him. So when something like that happened, or a veteran run and take cover behind a car, you know, how do we get our community to embrace them and understand that, hey, you know, it's not about, um, you know, someone being out of their mental space, but, you know, we need to embrace them for the things that they're going through and educating the community on that.
Yeah, great question. I think Miss Margo hit two things on the head that kind of got me thinking, actually, when she talked about getting things, you know, whether that's on a congressional level or even on the local ballot. I think the two things need to go hand in hand, and I think it starts with our local ballots, and some things we just got to get on our local ballot. Um, you know, I correct me if I'm wrong, was that Proposition 22 where Uber and Lyft spent over 200 some odd $1 million just so that they didn't have to pay their employees health benefits and things like that?
Yep, that was
Something like that. If I'm mistaken, it's about 200 some $1 million, if I'm not mistaken. So the thing about it is, if you can get these big time corporations to spend this kind of money on a ballot question, I think that's something we have to keep that same energy for our veterans. And how do we do that? That's a very good question. I think, like I said, start ground one is we need to acknowledge it. We need to raise awareness of it. And I don't even know where Yountville is, and I'm from the Bay. So when she said Yountville, I was like, huh? Like, where is that? Is that Northern California?
It's Northern California. I think
Napa.
It's over there with Mendocino? Like, are we talking like Mendocino North or
No,
like
Napa.
Oh,
Napa Valley.
that's still far. So yeah, when she said Yountville, I don't even know where that's at. So the fact that we don't even have something in South City, you know, I feel like San Francisco's answer has always been put something in South City, you know, and we haven't even gotten to that yet. I know there's a veterans cemetery, I believe, in South City, but we can't even get a homeless shelter or some type of outreach program or a senior citizens home. Not even in South City or Daly City or, you know, Pacifica. I feel like that's always been the city of San Francisco's, you know, we'll acknowledge the situation, but we'll just put it over here. We're not going to put it in the jurisdictions of San Francisco County. So being able to actually have those type of resources like within our city, my sister and my mom, they both still live in the city. They don't have a car. So God forbid if I were to come back in the city and something were to happen to me, I mean, they got to go to Yountville. I mean, I don't even know how to get there. So there's that. But I think just being able to put it on the ballot, raising awareness, acknowledging it, going to City Hall and maybe having a conversation with Mayor Breed and saying, hey, we've done this type of research where we have so many people right here on the front lawn of City Hall, and umpteenth of them are veterans, and we have no way, shape, or form of getting them the help they need. I know one thing that I think they did pass was what nonviolent 911 calls will no longer need police officers that are coming out there or something like that. So I don't know if it'll be like a mental health advocate or some type of who handles those type of situations. those will be the ones that'll be entering those premises. I think that's a good start. And another thing is, cannabis. It's a form of medication, and if we can spend all of these different types of millions and billions and gazillions of dollars on opioids and antidepressants and things like that, why can't we keep that same energy towards cannabis? I think that's something that needs to be brought up as well. They've used the military for lab rats for all different types of vaccinations and H1N1, anthrax, and all these different shots that the four of us have all probably had to take within our military career. And gladly we're not in the military now, but I'm pretty sure when the coronavirus vaccine comes out, those will be the first ones that will have to take the vaccination, and they'll be the lab rats. So if we've seen all of these lab rat experimental shots that have been taken onto us, why can't we be another dosage of utilizing cannabis as a form of medication? So that would be my two cents on that.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I mean, we got to push that agenda. I mean, because like I said last week, it frustrates me to see, the impact of the marijuana industry that impacted the Black and brown community. And now we have corporations now in the states that's legal making millions of dollars, off this drug that's incarcerated people, broken up families, imprisoned people. And I'm hoping that, under the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they find a way to get it off the Schedule 1 so that universities and different colleges could do a little bit more research, decriminalize it, and release some of these people who's doing, tremendous over sentencing, to bring these people back to the community. So I definitely, I'm in favor of that for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it down, but I had to say that. Come on, Gloria.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I would like to add that there are some veteran-friendly developments in San Francisco. The newest one is the Edley Apartments down across the street from the Chase Center. There's a wing for veterans. And there's another building, I believe in District 5 or 6, that's also affordable housing for veterans specific. But we still need to do more. When I was homeless, there was one shelter bed in San Francisco for a female veteran. And that was at Next Door Shelter. And I went down there and there was someone in my bed, So it's really bad. And then I wanted to go back to legislation. When I ran for supervisor, I did have on my platform that at least they could do is waive application fees for veterans. Because what they do is they send a list out of available apartments in San Francisco that are allegedly veteran friendly. And about 10, 15 veterans go on tours to these apartments and several apply. They take their $50, $60 and you never hear back if a veteran even got the place or if the owner just recycles the place month after month for viewings and never actually rents them to people or whatnot. So I would like, as a first step, to challenge some supervisor out there. I'm lobbying right now to make that in San Francisco, to waive application fees for veterans, and also Swords for Plowshares, which is the go-to spot here in San Francisco for veterans. I think they could afford, they get a lot of donations, so they could definitely afford to get these application fees paid for. And then they will see for themselves which units are full of crap and not actually renting them out to us, but just saying they are and getting that money.
Oh, that's definitely a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because we do have District 11 supervisor coming on here in a couple of weeks, our upcoming. Matt Haney. We had District 10 Supervisor Shaman Walton on. We have District 7 Supervisor coming on, and we also will be having the mayor come on. And I think that's the question that definitely we have to put out there to see, because I think sometimes that little bit of fee could be costly, especially if it's a matter if you're on tight income and you have to apply for several places and you're not able to have those resources if you're not even in contact or get the option to rent a place. That could definitely impact our veterans. So definitely I'm gonna bring it up.
Competing with the Section 8 group. for these apartments. So it's not easy.
So Gloria, would it look like, will it be better to just have something that was just driven towards or steered towards the veteran? Because I didn't know that Section 8 people also is in that pool. So that's something that should just be a separate conversation. Like, how do we make sure that our veterans have their own pool, or when they're talking about capacity for the community or these developments, how much are just for veterans and how much are for Section 8 in the community? I think that's a reasonable ask. I'm definitely going to throw that out to Matt Haney, because definitely in District 11 South of Market, there's a lot of high rises going up, and there's a lot of affordable housing going up. Yeah, or District 6. I keep saying 11. I don't know why I'm hooked on District 11 for whatever reason, but it's District 6. Yes, I'm all over the place. District 6 supervisor, Matt Haney. But I'm going to throw that out because in the South of Market area, they are throwing up a lot of affordable housing. But you're right. I didn't even think about that. Like, how much is that for our veterans, people of need? And then, like you said, the current situation that we have in our shelters and things of that, the security. That's one of the biggest things. I'm glad you brought that up because I hear it a lot of times and I talk to people on the streets. Why are you not going? We're paying all this taxes for these places. Why are you guys not going in there? And that's one of the biggest concerns that I've talked to people that's homeless is, man, the safety is not there. You go in there, people are fighting, people are stealing, things are happening. So how do we put added more security to those situations so that people can feel comfortable and come? I think that's definitely a good question to ask. And I've heard that several times, the safety and being able to have that reliable space to come back to. How do we make that for people who are transitioning, trying to get out of that spot? Definitely important.
Maybe Margo, she was on the Veterans Commission. Do you know any route we could take to get more services through the commission?
So I think it's a good question. I'll tell you things that were on the agenda, and I just left a few months ago. So things that were on our agenda just a few months ago is you guys are talking about Section 8 folks and veterans kind of pulling out of the same pool. Like right now, the office where you even get resources, it's a co-space with folks who are looking to get Section 8 and all this other kind of stuff. And so, the wait times there to get help can be extraordinarily long. So one of the things that we were encouraging the supervisors to do is to create a dedicated space for veterans. I think it's a complicated conversation for a lot of reasons. I do think there's a lot of privileges to being a veteran that just, Gloria, you were talking about earlier, aren't available to the rest of the population. And so there's a part of me that wishes that all these benefits were available to the entire population, but I also understand that there's a structure that's built around VA specifically as part of an HR benefit to support veterans. And so I feel like we're properly resourced at the hospital, and you guys give me feedback if I'm wrong. I think that we're properly resourced at the hospital, and it feels like we're properly resourced at our vet center, where people can walk in the vet center, which is right downtown San Francisco, and get, if not immediate help, close to it. So with the exception of the seniors home and possibly getting dedicated space for veterans to go to the resource office independent of Section 8 folks, I don't have off the top of my head what I think to be areas that we need to advocate around, right? So like my biggest area of advocating while I was on the commission is really the seniors home, because I think that seniors home would go a long way on so many different levels. I think there's a lot of families who are suffering in silence, where they, have the family member still at home and they're caregiving on some level. But when somebody gets to a certain level of dementia or a certain level of like age-induced debilitation, you just need more care. And so the only thing that I, off the top of my head, can say I know that's missing, and I feel like San Francisco is suffering for it, is having a senior living facility within the city and county of San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a challenge for me understanding that, like Eric said, in Palo Alto, one of the main VA hospital services down there, I have an uncle that's been, affected, and I felt like the services, like Margo said, is not there for the care outside of in the community, right? And then I think these veterans, they get hit or go through their PTSD, or they triggered, and then they go to the hospital. And from what I understand, is the hospitals are really not dealing with some of the mental health services, and it's more like a drug push, right? So like my uncle would always complain, like, man, I don't want to go because all he want to do is drug me up, right? It's like that's the treatment. So I think we also need to advocate for some kind of overview, and how do we deal with the veterans when they go into the VA services to make sure that they are getting the appropriate mental care, and some of the other services that they need. Because I know that was for my uncle, one of his struggles, being detained, was the over drugging and having to deal with that experience, being drugged up and dealing with all of the mental stuff. And it would mess him up. So when he would get free and come back, he was, it was just like he didn't want to deal with none of the service because of the trauma of the services within the hospital. So definitely, Eric, jump in there, about that. I mean, I think that's a big thing. I know that was just one of my experiences dealing with my family, when it came to care from the VA in East Palo Alto, and some of his concerns with the treatment in the center.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. There's definitely, I don't even know if I would probably say it's a trigger point. A lot of, especially our elderly, they have the stigma of when they do go to the VA hospital that, we don't really know what goes on behind those closed doors. A lot of times they just say, hey, we're going to put you on medication X, Y, and Z, and you know, our elderly folks, they're not as technical savvy as some of our young folks are, where we'll know what the active ingredient drug is, and we'll immediately just pull out our phones and start googling it. Our elderly don't have, they're not afforded that opportunity to do so. And sometimes, I don't know, John, I don't know if you can answer that question, if you were able to go behind the doors with your uncle, when exactly, you shaking your head and saying no, exactly, so
Yeah,
it's a
no,
one on.
I mean, it was like, I mean, even when he went missing, the call, they wouldn't even give us information. So I mean, I get, we have to respect the
HIPAA and
privacy,
whatnot, right?
but again, we're community, right? And we have to
Right.
get to this point where we're not isolating people from the community, because that's what happens, right? We segregate these people, and we're disconnected. How do we keep the community and family involved to make sure that we are giving them the proper treatment, and we have some kind of oversight to make sure that we're doing the right things to heal, to get them so that they can transition back in the community? Because it does us no good as a community if people are going in and we're keeping them for years and years, because we're not actually providing the service that they actually need, and we're just drugging them and housing them for for capital, and that's just really what it comes down to.
Right. And like you said, a lot of these medications, if you think about who runs these pharmaceutical companies, 9 times out of 10, if you look at who's running in office in our district, or even at our Congress or Senate level, 9 times out of 10, they have some form or fashion that they're tied into whatever medication that's being put out. So there's that. Number two is that, we need to, and I don't know how good Miss Margo and Miss Gloria can answer this question. We need to stop getting doctors who barely pass the med board exam, and putting them as our VA doctors. And when I say that, ladies and gentlemen, it means that usually 9 times out of 10, the people that are providing these healthcare functions for our fellow veterans, they barely passed the medical exam. They barely became a doctor. They're usually the bottom 50 percentile. So we got two people that literally barely passed, and we need to get better doctors in there. And shout out to all the doctors that are there. That's no shade towards you, but at the end of the day, you barely made the cut, B. And that doesn't necessarily always play in favor for all of our veterans, because 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be, hey, this is how I knew how to handle this prognosis or this diagnosis, is I opened up the book and it says, hey, let's just give them ibuprofen, we're going to keep it pushing. As opposed to actual doctors who were on that top percentile, who actually will take that risk and actually go above and beyond to make sure that the patient is getting the best care that they possibly can get. And I feel like when we are in the VA, and I've experienced this at times, is that the name of the game is, hey, let's just slap a band-aid on it, we're gonna keep it pushing. And that sometimes is the wrong answer. And I know that the doctors, they're under a lot of stress. They have to see so many patients within a day. So there's all of those different trigger points. And once again, that comes from lack of resources and a lack of our local and federal government that doesn't want to pay so much close attention to the VA. The VA is one of the, like, it's like that unwanted stepchild, we got you, but we don't really want to help you kind of thing, is that we'll give you some money, but we're not going to give you all of Pandora's box. So as far as being able to get the best doctors, I think it starts with there. We just got to get better doctors in there who want to take that risk and go above and beyond and say, hey, we're not going to give you ibuprofen or some oxycodines and things like that. We're going to go into different type of holistic method of trying to see how we can help you with your dementia, or help you with your PTSD, or even help you with some type of injury that you had in the military. And I think with that, it's just that we got to start vouching and start holding our politicians accountable as far as saying, hey, these things need to be addressed within the VA. And I know that, what was it, a couple of years ago, the VA had a huge scandal as far as the medical records and things like that got purged, if I'm not mistaken. So it just starts with an internal audit, possibly just saying, hey, who are these doctors and what's their overall performance been? And maybe we need to start holding those doctors a little bit more accountable.
Man, that's definitely an interesting perspective. I mean, you sound like you're talking about Kaiser. I think doctoring in American Western civilization is a problem, and in general, I see it in just private healthcare as well, where doctors are not being doctors like they used to be. It was a time where you come in there and we would try all the natural remedies first, where now everything is drug driven. You come in here, I got a headache. Here, try this. If this don't work, come back. We'll give you this. If this don't work, it's just real. Like, I've been to doctors where I'm like, dude, I had to switch because it's like, I have something wrong with my shoulder. They don't even touch your shoulder. Just go, hey, we're gonna prescribe you this pain pill, this muscle relaxer. If that don't work, come back and we'll give you this. So, maybe this is the driving point of how our doctors are. And I don't know. And I just think that talking to other people, me being working at a medical facility, research facility, I get to talk to some of the doctors, and a lot of doctors agree that the Western medicine sometimes is not the best approach for what we need. But again, trying to change that that boat, turn that around from a medical standpoint could be a challenge. So that was definitely a good perspective. But I just think doctors in general now with just family care, man. The way we doctor, and like you said, maybe it's because they don't have the resources. There's too many patients per doctor, whatever it is. It just seems that our medical professionals are so drug driven. And I don't know if it's because of the tie to finances. We know it's always money involved, but it just seems like they definitely tied into pushing drugs.
Gloria,
So,
did you have something?
Yeah,
On
I wanted, that's all up and down my alley, the medical situation at Veterans Hospital. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a blood disease. I've been diagnosed 8 years. And when I first went to Veterans Hospital, they had said, I think you have asthma. I had to actually go to a free clinic where I got diagnosed. But on the positive, as far as solution, I think when you are a veteran, it is really good to advocate for yourself, no different than in the civilian community. Mr. Henry just mentioned, he had to switch doctors. When you're a veteran, switch as many times as you got to switch, even if it means you go a little Vietnam on them and the doctor doesn't even want to deal with you anymore, you get to a one that will. And that actually happened to me. I really don't like Veterans Hospital San Francisco. I tag them and stuff all the time. They know, the patient advocate office knows my face. The director of the hospital knows my face. And I went so hard to the point where they sent me down to Palo Alto, where, and this is what Mr. Compton was saying, these doctors haven't scored high on their tests, but we also get residents from the colleges practicing on us. They're still students, San Francisco uses UCSF, all right on certain areas, but Palo Alto uses Stanford. And I'm so blessed to be able to drive down there. When I'm down there, I go get my Jamaican food in Menlo Park. But when I go down there, I have a Black woman doctor from Stanford. Her instructor is the expert in my field of what my illness is. And I thank you. I'm just so thankful. And then back to the mental health area, I don't know if any other people have went to try to seek therapy through Veterans Affairs. That's another struggle because you have a lot of white college graduated women that don't really have a lot of cultural competence. So again, you have to advocate in that area for yourself. And I don't want her no more. I don't want her. Give me another one. I don't want her. And keep on until you get someone. And then in closing on this subject, I really encourage any veteran to use the choice program. The choice program through veterans hospitals is like today is the 15th. You call to make your appointment and they have nothing till the 18th. Oh boy, that's 30 days. You get a choice if they can't get you an appointment within 30 days. And once they do that, you can go out into civilian world to any hospital and ask them if they accept the choice program. And then you get more of a choice. And that's what I did with therapy. I have a lady I talk to every Monday. Wonderful, wonderful. She had nothing to do with military veterans affairs, but she's qualified and we have a good relationship and it works. So it is an issue, but like I said, Black women in medical, period, we have to fight and advocate. They like to label us as angry. We're so dramatic. And we really have things wrong with us. And we're really telling them this hurts or this don't feel right. And they don't take us seriously. So civilian or military, advocate for yourself.
Definitely, and I hear that a lot. I had posted something about that. A lot of Black women was talking about the pain thresholds and how a lot of the medical facilities, they don't respect the pain thresholds that Black women have to deal with, and they think that it's a joke even when it comes to labor. So definitely, that's something we have to, think about and consider when we talk about these issues. And also, one of the questions me and Rico we talked about this weeks ago when we had our conversation on mental health. We had a bunch of people here in mental health, and we talked about mental health in the Black and brown community. My biggest question to the people in the professional, like you said, people that look like us, how is it that we are not getting these psychologists, clinicians in our community when that is the highest degree sought off by Black people? Like I read this thing in sociology and psychology was like the highest sought off degree for most African American brown community. So with all these people who are going into that field, why is it such a big shortage? And that's the question I had posed to the panelists the last time. Like, why is that? Because it's amazing. Like all these people have these degrees, but we so short in services. So, and how do we make that connection? Can we use, from you guys' perspective, some of our psychologists and clinicians who work in a civilian? Do you think that's a good mix to work with people in the military, or do the psychology clinicians need to have that military experience or background?
I don't think it's important for them to have the background, and I would echo what Gloria was saying. So, I mean, I right now am still actually seeing my therapist in Oakland because it has been a little bit challenging in making the transition down here in South Carolina. I would echo what Gloria said about the need to really advocate for your care. For me personally, so I did not make it through the Citadel despite having a 3.8 GPA as a MESAP for lacking the intangible qualities of a Marine leader, which to me is like, oh, so you don't want Black women? Yeah. Because if it's intangible, you know what I tangibly am seeing right now? One Black woman trying to make it through this program that no Black woman has ever made it through before, and resistance. That's what I'm experiencing. And, I mean, going back to what Gloria was saying too, it's like they tell you you're crazy and all this other kind of stuff to the point that you almost believe it. And when I was younger, I feel like I had a great support system that could help me to have the confidence and the courage to navigate for the stuff I wanted. And the older I got, I think the harder it got. So now in South Carolina, I had put in a request that I want to have a Black woman therapist because living down here in South Carolina and everything that I went through at the Citadel, I don't wake up in the middle of the night about Iraq very much, but I wake up in the middle of the night about OCS and the Citadel all the time because it was just the things that happened there were so unjust. And I could deal with it if it was just hazing. I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps by the time that I went there. And so I was accustomed to having to prove myself. But just the games and the sickness of like what happened. And I re-enlisted for 6 years for the opportunity to go be a MESAP, and they dropped me after the first year with a 3.8 GPA. Like serving 5 years enlisted. I love the Marine Corps. I will never be sorry that I joined. But that last 5 years was a different experience than the first 5 years, right? Because it was a matter of choice. And when the choice was taken from me and I was told, well, you got to like serve honorably or like the rest of your life will fall off, like I did what I had to do, but I have enough trauma about it that like, especially if I'm going to be down here in the low country, I need that competency that Gloria was talking about is missing in so many of the clinicians. And so anyway, I would just say, I don't think the person has to be military. I do think the person has to be specialized in what your affliction is. And I think that there's a serious cultural competency missing for people of color in the military. I think women have done an excellent job of saying, oh, military sexual trauma, come up with a new name for the stuff that affects us. But one of the things that I want to become an advocate around in my next season of political advocacy is really advocating for minority veterans, right? Because like we go through a hell that like is just as bad as what I experienced as a woman. Like I am a Black woman, right? So how can I say what part of it is like my woman experience, what part of it is my Black experience? But I feel like my Black experience was as much, if not more, than my woman experience. And so I think that as Black people, we need to take a lesson from the white women and the gay folks. And we need to start advocating more for our unique needs as people of color.
That's definitely well put there, and I would agree with you. And I've always talked to people who have mental health to definitely advocate and get out there because we have to change the stigma because everybody deals with this, and definitely our mental health community needs to definitely merge with the veterans on when it comes to that, and looking out for the best interest and to get sometimes those people into place. Sometimes that stigma of mental health for what we do, it affects us from getting those opportunities. So we also need to remove that stigma if a person has a mental health issue or suffer from something that they're not capable of making or advocating for what other veterans need or people in the community or people that deal with those type of issues. I think that's very important. And yes, I think as Black people, all the other communities are definitely uniting, not only just from the veteran standpoint, but we definitely have to start galvanizing our community because we are being impacted in so many areas, not only as a veteran, but just in our community as Black and brown people. And that's one thing that we're trying to do is unite as much as we can with this radical unity we call here on both sides of the conversation, trying to get people engaged. And I think it's very important what you just talked about with all of that. And it's a push. We just have to get the community together and we make this push. But Miss King, did you have something you wanted to say over there? I thought she was leaning over like she wanted to say something.
Oh no, I have a headache. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was just making sure. Asia, did you have any questions, Asia?
Can I ask a question? Looking at all your respective branches of service, would you recommend someone coming out of high school, especially with COVID and everything going on and world's changing, would you suggest either your branch of service or just service in general to a young person?
I recommend the Air Force. They pretty much live in hotels and have a good life and eat good food and they're a little spoiled. They don't see much combat. And you get in the medical field or journalism or whatnot, you can pretty much just work in your field, learn the skill and whatnot. However, they don't have the good duty stations. No, they don't. Their duty station, look at Travis Air Force Base, all out the way. All the Navy bases are where you can have a lot of fun and see the world. When they were in Bay Area, it was right there, Alameda County, Oakland Supply Center, fun, a life, culture. like I said, I've been to 18 countries. You know, average Air Force person doesn't get to go that many countries. They get stuck in a lot of 3-4 year terms and whatnot. I could switch every 2 year. I did 1 year Philippines. You know, I was bouncing all over the place, different, go on ships and stuff, and sail the seas and hit all those countries up in 3 months. You know, no other service really travels like the Navy. And again, the Navy is like, you don't have to be scared of getting killed like in the Army or in the Marines, you know. But the Marines, I really like the discipline they have. It's nothing like the work ethic of a Marine. I should have married a Marine I used to date. And the Army, Eric, I'm sorry, I can't really say nothing, but I wouldn't want my son or daughter to join the Army or go over to the sandbox. And that's mainly because of the times. Ever since these Gulf Wars started, and the whole Middle East situation, prior to the Middle East, I would have said yes for the Army too. But I just get too nervous about our Army brothers and sisters. Thank you.
I like Miss King over there. She laughing. She like, no, Gloria, don't be coming with the foolery.
Ask her how many countries she been to.
Well, I was in active duty, but I did go to a few places. Yes, I was at Bangkok and I was in Hawaii.
So Gloria, did you ever go down to San Diego?
All the time. That's where my training was. I stayed going to San Diego.
Okay. What about you, E?
That's a great question, Miss Asia. So I mean, you Miss Gloria brought up a good point. She said that, you know, the Air Force has some bootsy places to get stationed at, but I mean, I'm here in Las Vegas and they got a nice, decent Air Force base out here in Nellis Air Force Base. So I can't really mean. So for me, I you know, I don't think I would vouch for what branch to join, because low key people forget about the Coast Guard. That's part of the Department of Defense, and that's actually a sleeper that people don't even really know about. If I would actually tell somebody to join the military, it'd probably be the Coast Guard, because not only do they're kind of their own entity. They work with the Department of Transportation. They also do Department of Defense. So you don't really see too many people in Iraq, Afghanistan, or all these combat zones that got Coast Guard folks. So, you know, they there, but they ain't really there. That would probably be my number one. But honestly, number two, if you plan on joining, that's less than 1% of what this nation even volunteers to do. We're probably like the only you know, we're one of the few countries that have our whole military that volunteers to join. It's not like some countries in Europe where it's a mandatory 2 years before they can even start the career paths. I will say this: anyone who plans to join the Marines in particular, I feel like that's just a different type of respect that I have for anyone. Like I said, I always like to say I'm probably the most civilianist person that probably joined the military. And I say that with a comedic relief, but also with a whole sincerity that I did go against the grain. I did things my way. I'm probably the only person that did what I always like to use sports analogies, but I definitely went the Kevin Durant route and chose my contracts. So I was able to do 1-in-1 deals. So basically you take a 2-year commitment and you re-enlist for 2 years, but you can always open up your window. So basically when you can re-enlist, your re-enlistment window opens up within 1 year. So I always left the option of exit stage right as much as I could. So I always took 2-year deals, and everyone was like, Sergeant Compton, why are you always taking 2 years deals? And I was like, you just never know. You never know when you need a boogie. And with that being said, when I saw in 2016 who became my new person that was going to be signing my checks, I was like, no, it's probably time to go ahead and just opt out. But like I said, for anyone who joins the Marines, that's a different type of respect, because like Miss Gloria said, the discipline that they have. I know Marines look at people in the Army for sure as if we're civilians. Like we look like just nothing but just straight people, just wilding out. So I always say anybody who wants to join the military, it don't matter which way you want to go, but if you do want to join, make sure that you do your homework, make sure you select the job that you want to do, and don't let them steer you away of what you want to do, because if there's a will, there's a way. Right now, I will vouch for this, and this is out here right now. The Army is having a program because they're so short on helicopter pilots, where they have something called boots to seats, BOOTS to seats, where basically they're taking like an 18-year-old kid off the street right now could become a helicopter pilot. where basically that's a trade that you can have. You can actually go into any type of airfield as soon as you get out of the military, once you become a warrant officer and become a pilot. You can either go into rotary, fixed wing, but once you become a helicopter pilot, your career options at what, 24, 25 years old, after you've done your first couple of years in the military, if you don't want to make it a career, I mean, it's pretty dope to say you're a helicopter pilot and want to go in there. So I would recommend that for anybody who's looking into doing something cool. So that'd be my 2 cents.
So Margo, we know you a badass. That's just it. We know you a badass. I mean, just to hear her as a Black woman to say, I went there because I needed discipline. We already know, Margo, you a badass.
So, here's the thing. I highly recommend the military to people because one of the people who I recommended did end up dying in Afghanistan. I always make sure to say that because I know what you're going into. It's not easy, and especially if you're thinking about the Marine Corps. What I will say is that for me, the Marine Corps was the right choice. The one thing that it kind of messed me up for the rest of my life with is I had this expectation that everybody is going to have this insane work ethic. And so I think I recently hired someone that is now turned in their second resignation. The first one, I was like, it's not that bad. Just toughen up, little girl. You know what I mean? She's like, I don't think I'm this tough. I was like, you're not trying hard enough, So she got it back together for a week and was like, no, really, ma'am, I've had enough of this. And I did not sign up for the Marine Corps. So I would say that's now my challenge, right? Like my challenge as a leader, I now expect for everyone who works for me to have that Marine work ethic. Which can sometimes be a little bit challenging. And so it's two things. Like one, the Marine work ethic, where I just expect for stuff to get done. And if I tell you once, it's done, right? And I'm okay with you not having it done, but then you need to be okay with whatever punishment is coming, right? And so as a civilian, I understand I need to be mindful of HR rules and all this other kind of stuff. But I'm good for a stern conversation. I've learned how to put things in writing, to set out expectations. And once it's in writing, it's we're going to stick to this. This is what the plan is, right? And so I think what's difficult about for other people working for me now is it's here's the plan. It's in writing. That's your gospel. You're welcome. Right? You know what to do. And so then anytime something doesn't get done, they think, oh, maybe she's not going to notice this little thing, but they forgot that I am a Marine. And so the thing that it makes it good for me now though, is that because I have that discipline to always be looking, stuff doesn't slip. So my team always wins. And so it's kind of this catch-22 where on one hand, they're I don't know if I want this, but at the same rate, it's whoa, but the rewards are so good. Your team is doing such dope stuff. I want to be on that dope ass team. And so I don't know, for me, I have absolutely no regrets about joining the Marine Corps. And I think there's no other way to learn discipline and teamwork. I think teamwork is the really big part. And I think every military branch has that to some degree. But I almost feel sorry for people who don't get the full experience of esprit de corps. Of course, there's jerks in the Marine Corps. And of course, I had some challenges with some people while I was enlisted. But I've never had the same experience of people looking out for me on the level that they looked out for me when I was in the Marine Corps. And so for that, I'm incredibly grateful for. And that I try to instill in my team as well, right? It's this discipline because we need to all be able to depend on each other on a really core level. So I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
Well, I think you're going to have an amazing dynamic team because to work with you, they better be in order. I already can see it. She's running for office. She's putting everybody in line. Dot your I's, cross your T's. Y'all better be ready. So I think that's going to be amazing. But I want to shift the conversation just a little bit right now because I know we're about 30 minutes away from closing. And I feel like this is important. And I just want to talk about the respect that civilians, people in the community, especially with the disengagement with our Black and brown community. And like we talked about earlier, a lot of people not, understanding. People make comments, oh, that was your choice to join. And just want to hear you guys' perspective for as the respect, right? I know for some people, anytime I see military person, whether I'm in the airport or wherever, I'm always, thanking people for their service. And I know some people don't like that. And then I know some people have issues with the movies who portray their different branches. And I just wanted to kind of get you guys perspective on that. And you know, part of this conversation is definitely to inform our community intentionally, you know, how to deal with our military people and definitely give them the honor and respect that they deserve, whether it comes to job opportunities, whether it comes to whatever. When we engage with our veterans, how do we you know, intentionally, you know, get our community more engaged to give you guys respect? Because I was telling Eric earlier, you know, the courage you have to do the things to, you know, to get through the military, your family, the commitment to your country, all the stuff you go through to put your life in jeopardy, and then to not come home and be respected is a challenging thing for me, you know. And just over time in history, you know, from the GI Bill and how some of our Black and brown military service was treated unfairly when it came to lending and different things when they came back home from Vietnam War. And I'm very cautious and respectful, but every time I hear Gloria say "Go Vietnam" on them, like I'm like, I want to throw that one little thing in my conversation now, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that, because sometimes I'll be feeling like I need to go Vietnam on some people too. But but respect, and I mean, it's a big thing for me. You know, no matter what side of the aisle people are on, you know, me and Eric talked about it earlier, how most military people are usually more conservative, just because that party is definitely so pro military. And some people on the left is not so military. But for the community, especially for the servicemen and women, our Black and brown community, um, you know, I want to use this opportunity to intentionally get our people to show that level of respect to our military people, because I feel like sometimes in our community we don't value the same respect that we have for our service people as some of the other communities. And I want to make that a point before we leave today, and just get you guys views of how you feel about people respecting your branches when it comes to entertainment. Because I do take it serious, and I understand, you know, just from having family members who serve. So just want to get that from you guys. I think respect is a big thing for our community to understand, you know, what you guys sacrifice for us, and the level of respect that's needed to be in return. So I'll open it up to you guys.
Well, I often hear that the sold out to the white man, you know, speech from joining the military, and how there's lack of respect for us that have joined. But I like to challenge Mr. Compton on me being one of the most civilian military people. I think that's the word you used. But I didn't conform hardly at all. How I am now is how I was in there. Like I said, I didn't raise my hand when I joined. I didn't swear in. I crossed my fingers behind my back and my toes. I didn't even say the oath. I just stood in the back. When I joined, I wasn't a yes sir person, yes ma'am. I called people lieutenant, not colonel, captain or whatnot, their title, because I couldn't say it. I couldn't say yes ma'am or yes sir to a white person. What else happened? During the war, while we were in the Middle East, you know, I deployed over there 3 times. I lost it. Why are we here? Why are we doing this to these people? Asking questions, you know, trying to get answers, and being against, you know, a lot of what went on. And then lastly, I like to say there was a man that actually told me that for me to promote higher than E5, I need to kiss ass so I could get some awards. I said, well, I won't be promoting then, because I ain't kissing nobody ass, you know? So I wasn't in there just, yeah, yes, sir, all right, and this big patriot and all that. No, it wasn't that experience. I got the benefits that I wanted and whatnot. As far as what's the other part of your question?
I was saying
Oh, respect.
the respect from the community
Okay,
of you
so
guys doing stuff is, you know.
one particular man that gave me a hard time about selling out. I said, well, where do you work at? He said, for the county. I like, you work for the government, you know? So unless a lot of, like, I take it from a lot of people that have their own businesses, but even so, if you utilize our banking system, if you're using any form of capitalism here in this country, there's no way you can totally 100% be UCC one person unless you really sign the papers to be a sovereign citizen. And there's really not that many people who even know what that means. So me joining versus maybe ending up in the Tenderloin, or maybe no disrespect to it, but if that's your choice, I chose what I did. I got to get a wealth of knowledge that you can't even explain. The experiences, the people you've met, the best men are in the military. No offense to any brothers, but Mr. Compton was in the military, but some great men in the military. Oh my gosh, take your pick, and then yeah, I just think we all trying to survive and eat, and same people who hustle, they be like, I'm just trying to feed my family, I'm trying to survive. We were trying to eat, survive, and have something that we can plateau off of and get us where we are today. So I don't beg for respect, because I get it. When people not military people, I get what they're saying, but I don't know if they really know that we aren't up in there just conforming and being little punks or what have you, because we're not.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to challenge you on that. All the great men are in the military, and military men have the highest divorce rate. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to combat you on that. And,
Leave a man in uniform, John. Just let it go. Just let it go.
All right,
Yes.
Margo, do you want to speak on the respectee?
Sure. I can say I barely dated any military men. So my ex-husband was kind of like the beginning and the end of that for me. I was like, I don't know. I kind of like being the Marine in the family. So I kind of like that little joke aside. I think the respect thing is challenging. I don't necessarily, if I am a marketer by trade, and if I was putting together a PR campaign, it wouldn't be the like thank a veteran for their service thing, right? Because it just doesn't make sense a lot of times, right? Like, but I do think that there's something to like relationship, if that makes sense. And so, living in the South, people definitely have a different perspective of it here than they do on the coasts. And I would say down here in the South, I think it's just a part of like, there is certainly a lot of respect down here. And I think it's good, right? I think it's a very good and a positive circle that I wish we could have more of outside of the South, where it's kind of like this exchange that looks something like, the community feeling appreciative for the fact that people have served and gone overseas and all this other kind of stuff. But also the people who are here, like taking incredible pride in the fact that they fought for their community, right? And so there's kind of like, in the South especially, there's so many cultural things that it's like, I'm working really hard to identify so that I can talk about them, because I think that we are missing language, right? I don't know what this language is, to be honest with you. Like, even as I'm sitting here seeing it in my everyday life, which is relative because we're in Corona and I'm definitely one of those people who barely leaves the house, but you just kind of like feel it in the community, if that makes sense, when you go out. And so I think that anytime that you're able to figure out how to measure your respect for your community. And what I mean by that is, okay, so clearly I'm Black, but mixed. And I feel like my family is from, like you talk about, like throwing things down into South City, like that's where my family's from, right? Like my family is definitely from it. Like my stepsister got shot on my grandmother's block, right? So it's a different kind of community than the slow little community I'm living here in the South. And so I think any way that you can create standards that allow people to have a higher level of respect back and forth, I think that's a healthy and a positive thing. I think especially for the Black community, I think we have a lot of trauma that we're not honest about, right? Like, I think that we're just like walking around with trauma and we don't have language to have that conversation. Because I do think that within my community back home in San Francisco, that Black women aren't treated well. And I think that there's like, and that's why I love Audre Lorde. And I'm trying to like figure out how to translate Audre Lorde to John McCain patriotic type stuff, because I think there's something to patriotism, right? Like, I'm against white supremacy, but I'm all about us being a collective group that takes pride in our country and pride in caring for each other.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. After Eric, I want to talk about this patriotism thing and just kind of revel back to the Colin Kaepernick thing and kind of get you guys' perspective on that, because that impacted me, because I was, and I know for sure you guys being in the military, you have your own perspective. And I know I was talking to Eric earlier about a lot of military people when it comes to politics and different things, they try to stay neutral or stay out of it or really don't comment on that. But if you guys want to comment on that, I want to talk about this patriotism thing in America, because it's this ideal that white people are more patriotic than black people. And I see it in the body language when we have these, especially around 4th of July and these different celebrations going on. It's just this thing that I feel, and this is just me, and this is just totally me, just being around and traveling around, that white people in this country has this thing that they're more patriotic than black people or Latin people in this country. And I want to talk about that before we jump off. But go ahead, E. Talk about that, the respect thing.
Yeah, I put two and two together, man, because it actually falls into what your next segue was going to be. So I'll try to tie both of it in at the same time and kill two birds with one stone. But that being said, one of the Army values is respect, which ironically you brought it up. The thing about respect is much is given as much as earned. So whatever you put in is what you get back. As far as what movies and things like that portray me, I like to think of it as a concept, whether they did a good job or whether they did a bad job. The fact of the matter is, whatever battle story that they're telling, whether it's Lone Survivor or Midway, I think is another one just came out. All these different war stories. I like to think of the fact that, at least they're acknowledging it to people, to the open public, as far as being able to show some of the things that we've been to. What I would like to see is more stories about like Red Tails or the Navajos, where there's so many different battles and things that have taken place in so many different wars, where POCs were the backbone of the whole entire war. And if it wasn't for some of these stories, we wouldn't be in the 2020 situation that we're in, whether it's the Red Tails that were served as a convoy for the bombers because they couldn't get a crossover in Germany and land and drop the bombs. I think that's a story that isn't being acknowledged with the Tuskegee Airmen, for those people who don't know what I'm talking about. So stuff like that is just, I wish we would do a better job of telling those type of stories, because there's so many stories within our battle lines. It doesn't matter if you're Army, Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force, Navy, all of that good jazz. There's stories that we have that have not even been told. Whether it's certain supply units where it's just the going joke in the military is, if you're quartermaster, you're basically the HBCU of the military, is what the going joke is. But if it wasn't for the quartermaster, which is the oldest regiment in the United States military, they don't get gas, they don't get food, they don't get the supplies for them to be able to fight for our freedom. To kind of go back with the patriotism thing is, it's been very, very uncomfortable for me to say that I actually served 10 years in the military, to come home and see our nation so divided. And I like to use that. And for those who know me or those who have followed me throughout this journey, my biggest thing has been patriotism. To me now feels like the new word for racism. When I say that, you don't hear too many POCs, my brothers and sisters, out here talking about patriotism. We just trying to get by. You know what I'm saying? We're just trying to make it to another day. And when you see all of the MAGA people, the Proud Boys, the Beluga Boys, and things like that are waving these flags and things like that, it definitely is very uncomfortable. And but the cool part about it is, at the end of the day, that's them expressing the First Amendment. Just no different from when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee for the nation during the national anthem. And here's what I always tell people, how, I know you were going to ask about the Kaepernick situation and how we felt about it is, I don't know about these lovely three young ladies here. I don't know how many military ceremonies that they've been in, but I don't know if y'all can answer it. And if y'all can answer it all at one time, cool. If not, cool. But how many times have y'all heard the national anthem played at any military ceremony ever? because I haven't heard it. You probably play the Navy song, the Marine song, or anything like that. But as far as the national anthem comes, as far as whether you were coming home from a deployment, any sort of change of command ceremony, any type of military parade, it don't get played. They don't play the national anthem. So the whole notion that everyone's making a big deal off of this man taking a knee on the national anthem, they might want and say that is a form of disrespect to to our troops. Well, maybe we need to take a look at the third stance of the national anthem as well, where it talks about slaves and things like that. So it's just very sad that the four of us have all done what we needed to do to get home and see our nation so divided, because unfortunately, I always say this, you want to have that same energy towards Colin Kaepernick keeping his knee down or taking a knee, or anyone else who shows a silent, peaceful protest. But then we have the tiki torch people that blew up, that went ham over there in the University of Virginia. We had the kid that shot up over there, not too far from this, where Margo's at, over there in Charleston, South Carolina, either Charleston or Columbia, South Carolina, where he went to the church and shot up those 9 people. We had the whole George Floyd situation. We had the idiot in Wisconsin that killed 2 people just walking around with a gun. We have all these situations that have taken place, and yet we don't, yet we as people of color that have served this country, we have to endure that. So imagine seeing all of this taking place for the nation that whether we all have our own reasons on why we decided to join the military, but we see this taking place, and yet we come home and yet we still don't get the proper respect that we at a minimum should get. There's always stories of that. We have people that tell us that we're not white enough. We shouldn't even be serving because we're not white. There's definitely been times like this. So it just goes hand in hand. You want us to serve, but then again, you don't want us to reap the benefits that we did for you to be able to do the things that you do.
Yeah, that was perfectly put. I'm glad you broke it down that way, but I'm gonna pass it on to everybody. I know we got 10 minutes left. I just think that that's important. I never served in the military, and I heard things, and I'm glad you guys here because I wanted to ask that, because I've talked to people who were white and was like, well, really, John, they shouldn't even be promoting the flag like that. The flag is not to be, the real flag rules. They're not supposed to sell on products and different things of that, and that's the ultimate disrespect. So for me, it's like, well, I'm learning all this stuff about the flag code, but nobody's getting upset about that. So I wanted to ask you guys about that, because the whole, 4th of July, Independence Day, the way it's promoted and all of this, in reality, it's not supposed to be promoted. From my understanding, I'm not in the military, and I had somebody from the military tell me that it's very disrespectful. So just wanted to throw that out there. But I know we have 10 minutes left, and I want to get everybody to comment. So I'm going to let Margo go, and then Gloria, and then we'll wrap it up.
So I think I don't think that patriotism should be owned by white folks, right? And I actually think it's unpatriotic for like the Proud Boys and all that stuff that's going on. I actually would challenge their patriotism because it's the United States of America. And so for me, I think I'm trying to think of what comedian it was recently who was talking about, if you're gonna try to like go out of the box, come up with a good name like Proud Boys, right? Like the name sounds good, but the behavior has to meet a certain standard, or we shouldn't allow people to be taking something that is American and turning it into something that's un-American. And, honestly, like having a challenging conversation about the fact that our country started with slavery, and that the original patriots were people who were willing to enslave people of color and women. I get it. I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying that we're in America that has a hope for a better future, and that we need to hold people accountable to meeting that better future. And I think part of it starts with like Black people, especially Black people who are veterans, saying like, no, you don't own the flag and you don't own patriotism. And Colin Kaepernick started kneeling because a patriot asked him to do it instead of not respect. And so I just think there's so many levels to this of like patriotism should not be owned by white folks and will be in danger if it is.
Wow. Very interesting point. Gloria and Miss King, come on. You have to end us off with something great.
Well, I just want to, if anyone out there is considering the military or has a family member that is considering it, to please reach out to me. I love helping people, showing them the ropes and making sure they get a guaranteed skills contract before they go in. That I just can't stress enough. I love helping people in that area. Otherwise, I'm sucker free Niners, Kaepernick. I mean, it is what it is. No one cared about the flag. No one cared about the military. It's racist people that were mad he was standing up for Black men that were getting killed by the police. And to use that correlation that it has something to do with veterans was just an excuse, was just a dog whistle and full of crap. And I marched with my sign for Kaepernick, Veterans for Kaepernick. I just threw it away. I just moved. I had a sign, Veterans for Kaepernick. Like Margo said, the veteran asked him to kneel, and he did. Next, he's still not signed. Cowboys, I boycott. I seen the news. Cowboys might be on their third string quarterback and still can't sign them. Come on now, Other than that, I'm thankful for my experience. I'm very thankful I got to get out of my 5-mile radius and see the world. I'm thankful for my discipline that I have. I'm just really thankful I made that decision. Like I believe Margo said, she no regrets. And I'm thankful for being on both sides of the conversation today. I thought y'all would pull me out on something controversial, but it's good to be here on something that I truly consider myself an expert at, and that's being a veteran. We could go on another show maybe on the marijuana thing. I have my whole viewpoint on that. We do need to get Biden to make it legal on a federal level so that veterans don't catch hell at these veteran hospitals, because think about it, San Francisco has a veteran hospital. Even though marijuana is legal in California, the doctors there can't write a note saying for cannabis reasons you need this medication. They can't do it. It's illegal. So we really need to push that. I myself have been arrested for marijuana before. I go on and on and on. I've had doctors ridicule me because I've tried marijuana for sleep purposes. Didn't work, but I tried it and it came up in my system. So, you must have all these other problems because you tested positive for that, So it's something we do need to advocate for our new president and vice president to just make it a thing of the past and move on to something more serious, But thank you.
You want to say something, Ms. King, or you've had enough over there?
One thing I want to say is that, I always have a lot of young adults coming to you saying, when I tell them that I'm retired, they always tell me, wow, I wish I would have joined the military, and I always say, hey, it's not too late, there's always, that opportunity to join, if they're eligible, to join the military. Again, it's always a benefit. And, I say, make that opportunity for you. And again, when you join the military, make sure you do something that benefits you in the long run. And, get a job that, in the military that'll benefit you when you get out. And that's something, just take for gold and take for granted. And, join the VA and get some benefits from the VA when you get out. And that's it.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. I mean, it's very important. We might have some people out there watching that's on edge wanting to join, and definitely if you guys could put your contact information or how people could reach you on Instagram, Facebook, or any of the social media handles. Maybe somebody do have that question or they in transition. There you go. Gloria said, reach out. She'll talk you through it and give you some great information. I think it's important, the whole topic about the marijuana. Now that's even another trigger for me. I just talked about the people who need it. Now, just to throw this in the loop, are veterans. Some of these CBD oils and some of these different medicines that they're finding to deal with epilepsy and different things maybe can help some of our veterans too. So that's another way to start shifting our minds when it comes to this marijuana topic. I know Arizona, a couple of states, that's red states, passed recreational this election season. So I was very impressed to see that. So if Mississippi, like someone said earlier, is more progressive than South Carolina or Philadelphia or New York or one of these cities, definitely we have a problem. So, here at both sides of the conversation, we don't advocate anything. And if you do, just use responsibly, don't drink and drive, or don't smoke and drive. So we definitely gonna put that out there. But definitely, I know that there's change that needs to happen. There was a time where alcohol wasn't legal and everybody drinks alcohol and it's not negatively impacted of people day-to-day lives. And we know they label this as a controlled substance, and it affects people that drive. It affects people who use firearms, different things. So we definitely need to look into it to help our community. I'm glad to hear that with the veteran stuff. So that's gonna give me even a more push when I'm sitting in these meetings and we're talking about these things, because again, that can impact our veterans for service if they have marijuana in their system. So, and we have Margo here to say, hey, it helps her. So it is a 50-50 balance. And again, I'm not trying to advocate anything. I just think as America, we need to open our eyes, open up. We responded fast when we had the opiate crisis and people was going on all of the drugs of codeines and different things. And it was a fast, swift action taken for that. And I think we also need to have that same energy when it comes to this marijuana thing. Again, we have corporations now coming in our community, making billions of dollars off the same process and the same drug that's hurt our community, and definitely is taken away from our veteran services needs. So we're going to definitely talk about that. So thank you guys coming on as a panelist. Definitely in any of our upcoming conversation, if you guys want to join us, you guys are more than welcome. You are now part of the both sides of the conversation family. We do have some amazing conversations coming up in the future, and definitely if it's a topic that interests you or you have experience on or something you want to talk about, we definitely would like to invite you guys back. Eric, this is like your second time back on, so appreciate you. He's one of our hidden gems. We got to get a couple of yours. I know Rico's trying to get Gloria on, so we definitely going to be reaching out to you guys. And I really appreciate this conversation. It was very educational for me, very informative. I hope the people out there heard from you guys. As a community, we have to unify and make this awareness for our veterans. The part of the change is the Congress. Margo said it. We got to get our senators and our Congress to make some real change from the top to affect everybody below. So let's get behind our veterans and support them. Let's salute them. Even though Veteran Day passed, this is another opportunity, and that's what we're doing here at both sides of the conversation, to thank you guys and your family for your service, all the endeavors that you guys are doing. I definitely want to get behind you guys, and me and Rico here, we want to support you in anything that you're doing, especially if it's business. I know Gloria's working on a book. Margo's working on a book and also running. So definitely we want to keep that open invitation if you ever need to use our platform for campaigning or getting people aware, because that's what we want to do here, is about unifying the community, sharing information, educating our people. And we understand here, to lead the community, you got to feed the community with that 3-pack love of knowledge, love, information. And that's what we try to do here with the shows and the topics that we present to our community. So again, thank you guys for coming on. Put your information in the chat so people could reach out to you. As we're closing out, you guys, this Tuesday is coming up, another amazing hidden gem show. We're going to be highlighting some amazing people in our community and some business people that are doing amazing thing in our community. So tune in this Tuesday at 7 p.m. where we'll be doing another segment of our hidden gems, people in the community that's really impacting our Black and Brown community. And then the following week, the Thursday, we're going to have our Educational Thursday series. We're going to have another presentation coming up for our community that's going to be amazing. I know you guys seen Justin Ward this past Thursday. He came on and educated our people about workplace rights, trying to educate our people about harassment and different things that's taking place as we're transitioning this country. There's a lot of corporations and managers and people are doing some outrageous things to people in the workplace because their president wasn't picked. So definitely it was nice to have Justin come on to kind of educate people about their workplace rights as we move forward as a country. And then next Sunday, we're going to have amazing guests. I'm not even going to let it out the box yet. Bay Area native. She's doing big things. We're going to have her on. It's going to be a powerful show. I'll be remotely leaving out of town, but I'll be here to support it. I think it's going to be an amazing show. And we have some amazing things coming up over the holidays. So please stay in tune. As always, check out us on YouTube for our previous videos. Today's conversation will be there. Look at some of our previous work that we've been doing in our community. Also, to put it out there before I forget, we are still looking for women mentors to do virtual mentoring for our young people in the community. We are trying to get some women out there that want to step up and mentor our young ladies from the age of 14 to 25 years old. So if you're interested, please reach out to us at both sides of the conversation at Gmail. That's where you could get a lot of the information, what's going on, find out how you could help, because we definitely need our young women to be inspired by some amazing women in our community. And we just wanted to put that out there. So before I close, thank you. I'm here with Asia, and we're doing some amazing things. Thank you guys for reaching out to her and getting back to her. I know sometimes it can be a challenge getting the information out there, but we've been doing a lot of work, and they've been doing a phenomenal job. Our team on the back, Asia and Jada and Kashla, making this thing keep rolling. So thank you guys again today for tuning in for this session of a conversation with our Black military people. I hope you found it informative, and we'll see you guys for the next episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a blessed day.
Hooah.